I am delighted to welcome Dr. Iain Britton, a friend and colleague who I've known for many years and who is, without any question, the global expert on police volunteers. Let's start. Give us a few words of introduction, if you would, as to the headlines of your policing expertise.
So what I'm doing now is I focus on volunteering across policing, helping to realise what I feel is the huge potential of volunteers in policing. And I think that whole context that we don't really have an evidence-based approach. We don't have an approach which learns across police forces, across countries, in terms of how we go about volunteering, how we capture the value of it, how we develop it for the future. So I'm now an academic researcher who works full-time across police volunteering. I bring to that quite a diverse and slightly nomadic background across criminal justice and policing. So I started my career as a probation officer in the UK and also worked around drug interventions programs and around youth justice, and then moved into various managerial leadership roles as police staff in policing, culminating in being the chief executive to Adam Simmons, the first police and crime commissioner in Northamptonshire. And I think a lot of those years, that background certainly whetted my appetite for that whole sense of, communities police, policing doesn't police, but, the importance of partnership, the importance of, widespread involvement, but you can't have community policing without community, and that fundamentally that sense of a wider involvement was crucial. And the advantages of having, external voices, external perspectives. What I liked working closely around the police and crime commissioner model was that it was external perception, external understandings of policing being brought in at a strategic level into policing. And what I see a lot in the police volunteers world I work around now is that sense that these people also police alongside their very diverse backgrounds and working lives. And there's something about that being really refreshing to policing, to have those perspectives and understandings from all sorts of different walks of life, all sorts of different perspectives being brought into policing clearly alongside the expertise of people who've had 20, 30, 40-year careers as police officers working only in the policing sector. I think one of the things I've seen by working in the probation service, working in local government, working around the police and crime commissioner, working around the huge diversity of walks of life of police volunteers is just that power of drawing a broad range of people around a problem, and that sort of engagement of all the skills, all the talents in the room.
So let's come on a little later to the what it is that in the UK police specials and more widely police volunteers bring to the policing family. Let's come back to 2012 when in the UK we had the introduction of police and crime commissioners. So a new governance mechanism in the UK, or rather in England and Wales, replacing in the main police authorities, although there remain a handful of police authorities still, and these being elected politicians. You've mentioned Adam Simmons as the first elected police and crime commissioner for Northamptonshire, and you were his chief executive at the point at which he was elected. So you had transferred over from the previous policing body to the new office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, and he inherited you, is that right, as his chief executive when he came in that presumably Friday after his being elected on the Friday morning, and you shook his hand, and he set out his plan for the Northamptonshire force. Would that be right?
I've been working in the sort of corporate development headquarters department of the force prior to that. So I'd been looking after things like performance planning, support to chief officers, those sorts of functions, and then moved across to take on the considerable challenge but fascinating challenge of setting up that totally new model of how we govern policing.
So Adam Simmons was at the time he was the PCC for a full term, so 4 years, I think, in Northamptonshire, and he was known for being determined to make the greatest use of the powers of a police and crime commissioner, and to bring in significant change. What do you remember of that 4 years? It won't have been dull, I'm sure.
No, I think significant challenge. There were understandable voices of concern about the politicization of policing, whilst in many other parts of the world people are quite used to elected sheriffs having that very blurred role of being an elected politician and being the chief police officer of a policing agency. In the UK, that hadn't been our culture and history. You did have politicians on a police authority, but I think it felt like there was a raw and direct party politics brought into policing, which concerned some, and I understood that dynamic. I think there was also a collision between traditional ways of doing things, the professional perspective of things from policing, and fresh ideas and new ideas and challenge. And that's a bit I really remember. What we were, I think from the start, we had a quite ambitious sense of what this role might be able to achieve and change. So perspectives like bringing the, different emergency response agencies together. So we established the emergency service cadets, bringing in young people from fire, ambulance and policing into, what I still think is one of the most exciting youth programs, in the UK around policing and related agencies. We had a passion for bringing, volunteers into policing, for expanding our special constabulary program and refocusing that, for engaging with community initiatives, faith-based initiatives involving community in different ways, establishing the Institute for Public Safety, Crime and Justice in partnership with the University of Northampton to develop that sense of independent, evidence-based, thinking at the heart of policing. And I think, it did feel like exciting times, opportunities to think differently and do things differently. But I think the culture, the cultural whirl of all of that is something I very much remember, and that whole challenge of, almost I don't want to say a traditional thinking police leadership, but certainly a police leadership which was used to being in charge and used to having its own thoughts, and how that came against quite a significantly different, modernising,
It was
PCC.
it was certainly a time of change and challenge, and not every PCC handled it as well as they might have done. I'm not going to rehearse some of the stories that emerged about police and crime commissioners at the time. Some of the chief constables found it very difficult with the power balance change from police authorities where the chair of the police authority, he or she, had a panel of, or a board of some 17 plus that they would liaise with, and the speed with which those police authorities took decisions was pretty slow. Police and crime commissioners, on the other hand, could take decisions extraordinarily quickly, and also had much more overtly the power to hire and indeed fire chief constables. So quite a challenge there. Also for you, Ian, as the chief executive, setting up the office of the police and crime commissioner, because some of the roles that that office had, there weren't the staff to do, because there were significant additional roles there in commissioning victim services, for example.
Yes.
So what do you remember of that element, the challenge for you as a chief executive, having to bring on stream changes in structure, changes in relationships, additional staff and the like?
I think there was a lot of challenge of an expanding team and managing the sections of that within policing and indeed more widely. And I think because the police and crime commissioner role was more a role of leadership, as a strategically shaping role, it had evolving a broader brief across partnership working, across community, across victim services. It wasn't a like-for-like replacement of the police authority, which sometimes felt like quite a cosy and comfortable relationship with the chief constable, and the PCC felt more like a shaping, directive and challenging relationship, and the office and staffing which came with that was challenging to create, given the sense that people then felt that it was costing a lot of money, and I suppose the creation of the office was part of that wider challenging sense of PCCs not being the same as police authorities and seeking to assert that different space and that different role.